So we can go ahead and get started. Yes, I'm so glad you joined me today. Okay. I think you and I have been rocking on Facebook probably for about a year now. So, yes, I'm so glad you came. Okay. So, the topic, well, first off, let me just give a little bit about what I do. So, the women that I help are women who are, oh, first time watcher. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoy. Um, so, women who, have left their marriages, divorced, or long-term relationships, and basically, I help them to create the life that they really truly desire, that they've been wanting, but life has been placed on hold for them because of that marriage or that long-term relationship. Um, it gets a little deep. It's a lot more nuanced than just that, but that's like the core of what I do. And we do that by getting into your limiting beliefs, um whatever sort of insecurities and things, all of these things that hide in your shadow. And what happens is when you leave that marriage or that long-term relationship, a lot of those things are still lingering, and it has an effect on how you are navigating your life, as a single woman, a divorcee, or whatever. You're still carrying those same patterns and those same patterns of behaviors and thoughts and all of those things. And you're still moving as if you still need the, like, all I say is, like, you need a handler, or you're still moving in a way that maybe you almost feel like you're afraid to move and make the decisions on your own. I always say that a lot of times women make decisions by committee instead of being able to stand in that inner authority and make those decisions and navigate and move the way they want to, execute the way they want to. So that's what I get into in the coaching, the one-on-one coaching. Like I said, it's very nuanced and it gets into much more depth, but that's like the core of what I do. But and I call it dark feminine transformation, because what we're doing is we're pulling out that primordial energy, that dark feminine energy, right? To help you. We take that and we transmute that to help you create the life that you want. So we're talking about shadow integration, and like I said, pulling those things out that are in your shadow. So today live. Um, so first I want to start off with, I proposed a question. I'm just pulling up my notes. I proposed a question in one of the divorced women's groups, and it was so interesting how most of the answers, they parallel. So let me pull it up real quick. I pulled up already, but let me see. Okay. Give me a minute. I thought I had it pulled up. Let me see. Okay, here it is. Okay, so the question that I proposed was what type of conditioning still lingered after your marriage ended that you're in the process of deconditioning. So it was very interesting because a lot of the answers that the ladies gave, they parallel. A lot of the questions were surrounding the aspect of identity, inner authority, and fear of moving on their own, right? And this goes back into the infantilization that a lot of women are under. I would say they're still in daughtership. And so, what I wanted to do today was discuss how we can sort of tackle those things, right? Just give a little bit about what takes place in the container, but still just want to just talk about things that are affecting women on a whole when it comes to this thing, right? And so, um, what I have found, and it was even within myself, the biggest thing is identity, right? So Most women have no idea of who and what they are outside of the conditioning and the roles that they've been given, right? So we learn early on as children, as little girls, you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have babies, and this is what you're supposed to do. Um, Regardless of you going to college and being very accomplished and doing all these things, this is what you're really supposed to do. This is what your purpose truly is. You're supposed to be somebody's wife, somebody's helpmate. What is it? Help me, help me. Right? So this thing is really coming from out of the religious dogma. And when I have found that as spiritual as women claim themselves to be, when it comes to that religious programming shows up again, right? They try to cover it up with the consciousness and the man and the woman, the masculine and the feminine. We're supposed to balance each other and all of this stuff. And they say these things as if they're coming from a space of being very evolved and past religion, but it's very much religious at its core. And so if you can't see yourself outside of that, no matter how spiritual you claim to be, you're still stuck in that religious dogma that says you are supposed to get married and you're supposed to be this helpmeet and you can't leave your marriage. You have to stick it out. You have to go through all of these things. You have to stay no matter what. Right. So, what ends up happening is once a woman actually has the courage to leave, she actually has the courage to file for divorce or actually leave that long term relationship. Then it's like all of these things come back. So, I had a client this morning and what we were talking about was one of the things that I mentioned to her was that all of those things that you placed on hold when you were in that marriage or that long-term relationship is all of the things and like whatever aspirations or goals and stuff that you had for yourself that you never accomplished because all of those things had to be placed on hold. Most of the time, the women get married, they have to place themselves on hold. I always say they take that part of who they are and they place it on the shelf so that way they can see the world through his lens and only be there for his purpose, right? So once you come out of that, all of those things just sort of like just hit you, right? And so now you have all of these thoughts and all of these things you want to do. And now you're having a hard time executing because your ideas are so unorganized. There's no structure, all of that. Because even within the marriage, right, there was some kind of structure there, right? So once you come out of that, then there's all of these things that are just sort of hitting you all at once. And you start to realize, dang, like I really placed my life, placed myself on hold for him and his purpose and his dreams or whatever that is. And sometimes they don't even do anything, right? You're just there because, I mean, a lot of these marriages don't really amount to anything. They're very, like, really, like, stuck in mediocrity and you never really do anything, right? It's just get married, have babies, pay the bills, and that's it. But because we're under this structure, right? It's patriarchal structure, right? It's always about what he wants to do. Okay. So once you leave, then it's like, oh, well, what do I do now? Yeah. Monet said it starts to feel like a waste. Absolutely. I mean, that's how I started feeling. I was like, what is this? What are we doing? Right. And so I knew that I could accomplish more on my own, but I had to overcome so many things. I had to go into that shadow and do that work. And I'm still working on myself. Like we're always working on ourselves, right? But, there's certain things that'll still come up for me. And I have to address it like, wait, why am I even thinking like this? This is how I would have responded if I was still in that marriage. So now I have to take that and reframe it. I'm big on reframing and ask myself, okay, well, why do I feel like I need to get all of these different opinions, second, third, fourth, fifth opinion before I go ahead and execute? That is the conditioning that we find ourselves under when we're married or when we're in these long-term relationships. And kids. Okay, so um so what I want to do, I wanted to pull up with some notes I wanted to pull up because there were some things that I was thinking about. And like I said, this always goes back to identity. That's a big thing for women. And it's interesting because 2026, we dealing with numerology. It's the year of one, which represents identity. So this is the time, this is the year of identity. And so the way things are moving now for women, and I even talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I was like, if you're still in this marriage where you're not happy and it's no longer serving you, this is the time for you to get out of it, or long-term relationship, right? This is the time for you to start to do the work to work your way out, because things are just going to get really, really like weird and crazy surrounding marriage. Like they're trying to overturn no fault divorce, right? So it's going to end up looking like a woman has to get permission, right, from her husband in order to file for divorce. So these are things that definitely have to be considered, and we have to keep those things in mind as women who, if you're in like I said, a marriage that you no longer want to be in, right? So you have to keep those things in mind. Um, so what I want to do, something else. I'm trying to find, because I have my notes. Okay.
I did a verification thing on you real quick.
What? Sorry, y'all. What?
Okay.
I'm in a live, sir. I'm in a live.
Okay.
Can you do it?
No, Tyler.
I can't do this right now.
No, just stop. You just turn your head.
Are you serious right now? All right, it's a check. It's a check.
Don't you won't work for me?
See what I'm talking about?
Don't let me do it.
Okay. Sorry about that, y'all. This is what happens when you have children. So, the case study, right? I like to do these case studies because, as I said before, a lot of the issues, they parallel between women. And one of the things that I noticed is they kept saying that they were always apologizing, and they still do it, over apologizing, not trusting themselves. Those were the two main things. And it was showing up in all of the comments when they were answering the question. And so I thought that was so interesting because, we think about, we women have way more in common than they think they do, regardless of whatever sort of culture, whatever country you're from, whatever your ethnicity, nationality, whatever. We all have certain we all have certain things in common when it comes to, being married or being in long-term relationships, right? And one of the things is not trusting yourself. And so when you come out of it, that, yeah, it was still some structure there, but having that inner authority is what's missing, which connects us back to identity. And so what ends up happening is it makes it hard for you to move on. It makes it hard for you to get to those, whatever those aspirations and dreams and stuff that you had. It makes it really hard for you to get to it because you're constantly second guessing yourself. Right? You're constantly thinking you have to make decision by committee. If it wasn't that man that you had to keep going to, it was a lot of times the women, it's their mamas. That's another thing. That's another conversation for another day, because I can go so far into how these relationships that we have with our mothers, and if we're not being handled by a man, we're being handled by our mothers. And I noticed that with the work that I do with on the side of the financial, like health insurance, life insurance. I deal with a lot of small business owners, and a lot of times the women, they can't make decisions. Like they'll be so gung ho from like in the meeting, like, oh yeah, let's do this, let's do that, blah blah blah, and then like the very next day they'll ghost me, and it's because they talked to their husbands, and he was like, no, you don't need to do it, blah, 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 blah. I know this is the conversation that takes place because it's a conversation that used to happen for me. So when the woman, the business owner, when she basically ghosts me, or when she just out of nowhere says, oh, okay, I don't want to do it, I already know. She talked to that man, or she talked to her mama, right? And so, because as I've said before, the masculine, and this is not about male bashing or anything like that, but this is what the structure of the masculine thinking is, or whatever, right? It's about sitting women down. They want to sit us down, right? And so when you get married, When you're in these long-term relationships, you start pushing out these babies, all those things are designed to sit you down. And so when you finally have the courage to leave, now you have a whole other thing to contend with. So I was had an appointment with a client today, and the whole thing was about getting her to focus on one thing and one thing only, because she's so smart and she has all these ideas and things that she wants to do, but it was like she was just, trying to figure out, I want to do this, I want to do that, I have these ideas for my business and everything like that, but it's like, okay, well, we have to focus on one thing and one thing only. Well, the reason why women find themselves so scattered like that is because when they were in those relationships and those marriages, there was like this illusion of comfort. They didn't have to do a whole lot. Right. So this is even brings us to this phenomenon of leaving your brain at home when you get a man. So when you come out of it, you're so scattered and you're trying to figure out, what's my next move? Like, what do I do? Like, I want to do this, I want to do that. Um, I put all these things on hold. And so now it's like everything is flooded back to me and I want to do all these things, right? But now you're like, well, what do I do first? Like, how do I do this? And so what I had to tell her to do was take 1 hour and just focus on one thing. 1 hour on this particular day and only focus on that one thing that you want to do. And that's it. Forget everything else. Don't focus on any of the other stuff. Just focus on that. And what I also have found is that I have another young lady. She's been out of her marriage for like 3 years now, and it's still there. So, a lot of times we tend to think that it only happens when you first leave, like you're fresh out of the divorce, you're only like 4 or 5, 6 months out. Right. And so you're all over the place. But there's also women who have been out of these marriages for 3 to 5 years, and they're still like stuck. They're still in that functional freeze. They don't know. Yeah, they're able to go to work and pay their bills and do these things, but they can't really get past that because that was the default position. Like if you are the wife who worked, then for you to keep working is not a big deal, right? But outside of that, you're like, well, who am I outside of that? Who am I outside of the mom who was working and I was also a wife? Who am I outside of that? Or if you were a stay-at-home mom, well, who am I outside of that? Yes, I know how to maintain a home because I did it for so many years, but who am I outside of that? And so the way I maintained the home, I still had to run everything through him, right? And so now it's like, how do I function outside of that? Who am I outside of that? So what does that bring us right back to identity again? That is such a big thing for women, identity. Identity, and inner authority. Those are the two major things with women once they leave the marriage or that long-term relationship. So, what I have found, and even with myself, like, and it's so funny because I had to tell myself this, and I also had to tell a friend of mine, "You're not wrong because you didn't." Well, I'll just say, for example, let's say, and this is something that you end up taking with you once you leave, and one of the things is, forgetting to pick something up from the store, right? And or you didn't remind him of this particular appointment or whatever it is, very minor things, right? But it's something that we've been doing. Okay. And so say you forget to do it or you didn't remind him, and then you're stuck with this feeling of inadequacy. Am I wrong because I didn't remember to do that? Am I wrong because I forgot to pick this up from the store? And and I don't know about y'all, but from my experience, it was always this thing where it's like you're focusing on what I didn't do, right? So then you start to feel like you're inadequate or you start to feel like you're wrong. Am I wrong because I didn't do this? Am I wrong because I forgot to go pick this up from the store? Am I wrong because I didn't remind? And when that goes on a lot, and I know for me, that took place a lot for me, and it caused me to feel, like I said, inadequate. And you end up taking that with you. It's so many things that we take with us once we leave these types of these long-term relationships or these marriages, we take so many insecurities that were created while we were in it, and we take it with us once we leave, right? And like I said, these inadequacies, and it causes so much it makes it so hard for women to move to that next step. And it's like you have so much to contend with. And so now, a lot of times you go to therapy. I did therapy too, but after a while, I was like, this is not really addressing. It's something that I'm missing. It's something that this isn't addressing. And I came to realize that it was the identity. Even though the way she was approaching the way the therapist was approaching this was supposed to be dealing with the identity, but I left. I stopped dealing with her because I don't know, it just felt like it was something she just wasn't covering. And not to mention the fact that I had to check her because she was getting a little, but that's another day. I was like, I can't deal with her no more because we gonna have problems. But it was the identity and it was the inner authority because everything that she was trying to counsel me on was, was how to make sure I'm getting to know myself, but I'm doing it to maintain the relationship with him. So it still ended up being about him, right? So how can you find that inner authority if you're still outsourcing it and making it because of somebody else? Right? And this is when the selfishness comes in for women. We got to be selfish when we're doing this work. And we can't do it because we're trying to please someone else. We can't do it because we're trying to, make this thing work. No, you have to do it for you and you only. And then everything else sort of like trickles down. I always say that when a woman is completely happy with herself, when she has been selfish with herself and she is in her truth and confident in all of these things, then the people around her, they're going to benefit from that. You don't have to be a martyr. You don't have to, I'm doing all the work on myself because I want to do this and I want to do that. No, you do the work on yourself just for you. That's just for you because the people around you are going to benefit, right? So, let me pull up some other notes because there was something else I wanted to address. Oh, yes. So, when I was talking about feeling like you're wrong all the time, right? And I don't know if any of you ladies have experienced that, but that was like a big thing for me. I was constantly questioning myself when I was in it. I was constantly questioning, even wondering, like at a certain point, I was even questioning. I'm not saying questioning my intelligence, but something happens, and you start wondering, am I making the right decision? Am I smart enough for this? You start going through all of these things in the marriage, in the relationship. And then yet again, like I said again, you start to take that outside and then you start trying to do life with that same mindset. And so it goes right back into second guessing yourself. So, you know, there's so many things. There's the financial aspect of it. Um, you know, not being self-aware, and there's just all of these things that you're not even cognizant of until after you leave. You know what I'm saying? Like there was certain things I didn't realize about myself until after. I remember my sister was like, "Oh, well, you used to do this." And I noticed that, after you had been married for a while, everything that you started sounding like him and your views of the world was like his. And I was like, "Wow, I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing." That's that lack of self-awareness that so many women have. And you take the lack of self-awareness that you most likely already had and then you get married, forget about it. You're going to be usurped into his life and into his purpose, right? Now, this is no shade for anyone who is in a great marriage, but I'm saying, once women who were in marriages, like I said, that were not serving them, and they were basically just, like I said, they were being usurped into his world and his life and his purpose, and seeing the world through his lens alone, right? And so, and then too, it's like it goes back to when I said that, for women, they're always looking for the adult in the room. That's a part of that conditioning. I really think that that's why a lot of women end up getting married, because they're always looking for the adult in the room. That is the infantilization, that is being stuck in daughtership, because you're looking for the adult in the room. You're the adult. Right? So it's and the crazy thing is, you wouldn't even think that this is a thing. But once you come out of it, you're like, wow, like, can I really do life by myself? Like, can I do this? Can I go and make these decisions without talking to everybody else? Can I see the world through my own lens at this point? You're still taking some of these things with you. And so that's why it's so important to, that's when we start getting into that shadow integration, right? Because all of those things about you are, sorry, notification. All of those things about you are taken and placed in your shadow, and they're just sitting there. And then once you leave, if you really want to start doing that work, then all of those things start to come back. And now you have to face it. You have to deal with it. And you're either going to deal with it or you're not. And then you continue to just move in the same way you were moving before you left. And then that means you're not getting anything done, because why? Because you were looking to him to basically solve everything, right? All you had to do was just sit there and deal with the kids, pick the kids up from school, take them to their appointments. But he was doing everything. You was looking to him to handle everything else. So you took whatever sort of goals and aspirations and skills and all of these things that you had when you married him, and you take them and you just sit them on the shelf. And he's just doing all of the things, and you're just there, and right. And then once you leave, you're like, damn, now what do I do? So let me see. I'm looking at comments. Okay. So, like I said before, I don't know if any of you ladies have experienced this, but I thought this would be a very interesting case study, because the feminine mind is so vast, and we have so many things that we want to do, and so many ideas, and we just don't know how to execute. And you're not wrong for that. You're not wrong because you don't know how to execute. It's just that you weren't given most of us weren't given the blueprint, right? Well, the blueprint that we were given was what I said earlier. You get married, you have kids, and you just, and you basically just you're just in that default space, and it's just him. You're just delegating everything to him. So, and that's considered the norm, right? It's not natural, but it's normal, right? So, there was like some other. I keep pulling up my notes. I have so many notes. So let me get my notes. um, let me see. Hmm. When I was talking about thinking that you're wrong all the time and fearing, hold on, let me close this. Sorry. Oh, okay. See, kids. Let me see. Oh, okay. So Shandura said, I'm in a space of creating a permissionless life. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like we're always waiting for permission, you know? Permission to live our lives, to permission to, I mean, it could be anything. Ooh, this, I didn't realize how much I said sorry. Yes, that was another one. The being very apologetic all the time. We're always apologizing. I tell my daughter now, would you please stop apologizing? Stop doing that. right? It's so quick. We're so quick to say, I'm sorry. For what? What are you apologizing for? Because you want to live your life? Because you have things that you want to do? You have desires outside of this? You're not wrong. So why are you apologizing? You didn't do anything wrong. Speaking up for yourself, expressing yourself. Why are you apologizing? But we're so quick to do that. And, we can get into conditioning all day long. I don't talk about conditioning as an excuse. The conditioning is real, it is a thing. But what you have to do is you have to decondition. You have to decondition your mind. You have to do the deconditioning. It's real easy to get comfortable and say, "Oh, I was conditioned to do that." Okay, now what? Right? So you just gonna that's just your story and you're sticking to it. You're not gonna do anything about it. You're just gonna stay in that space of being conditioned, right? So I'm glad that you mentioned this because that was the thing. So many women in that thread, they all said the same thing. I was always apologizing. I was always people pleasing. I was always so afraid to do things that I wanted to do, or I felt guilty because I wanted to do something for myself. That's another thing, that whole guilt thing that sets in just because you want to go do something for yourself. I mean, the level of conditioning that you're placed under as a woman. Yes. Yes, learning to unlearn is an everyday thing for me, and that's what you have to do, and see, within in my container, it's a lot of unlearning going on, right? It's a lot of unlearning or what I call deconditioning going on. It's like it's like you almost have to strip yourself down to the core of who you are, and then that is the shadow work, that is shadow integration, right? You have to get down to the core of who you are. I mean, I had to do that. And, you're not going to like what you see when you really start doing that work. There's going to be you're going to see aspects of yourself that you're like, wow, I did not realize I was doing that. Like I said before, once I really started doing this work, my sister would tell me certain things. She'd be like, I remember, you had an attitude on this day and I couldn't understand why, but now I know it was because of whatever it is you was dealing with him. But instead of you taking that and dealing with it, you were just like projecting it onto us. Like these were things, and I didn't realize I was doing that because, we're not thinking when if you have an attitude with somebody, we're thinking, oh, you just talking crazy, you've been disrespectful. No, it could just be the projection of whatever that energy is that you're carrying at that moment. And she was like, I was projecting it onto her. And I was like, wow, more self-awareness. That's a major thing for us as women, the self-awareness thing. It's like, and it goes back to identity. That self-awareness, that's the one. Like I talk to my daughter all the time. She's like, I consider her my first mentee. I talk to her all the time. Does that make sense? Why are you apologizing? Ask yourself, does that make any sense? Do you really know the answer to that? Are you asking me just to ask me, or do you know the answer? You know? Self-awareness. And so it makes you have to, makes you really have to look at yourself. We're really just not conditioned to do that. But I do say that women are much more open to doing the work, right? For the most part, most men are not open to do the work. Men, they're really just looking to see what they can extract from you. What do you have that they can pull from? Right. When I say that men study us, they're not studying us to really gain a true understanding of how our brains work and how we work as women, our mind and our brains. No, they're really studying you because they're trying to see, okay, what can I get from her? What can I extract from her? This is most men. Now, of course, there are there are exceptions, but for the most part, we're talking about in the general sense of dealing with men. And most of the time, they're looking to see what they can extract from you, how they can benefit from whatever it is that you're doing, whoever it is, whatever skills, tools, whatever it is that you have. They're looking to see, how they can benefit from it. And this is why we talk about how men benefit more so from marriage than women do. And within this construct, that is absolutely true. Now, do women benefit? Yes, women do. It's under the patriarchal structure. Women benefit from it, right? But they benefit from it in a way where they're able to sort of weaponize it and use it. Like I always say before, a lot of times, most times women get married so they can stunt on other women. So when we're talking about the benefits of marriage for women, that's one of them. But we absolutely know that men uh, definitely benefit from marriage. I mean, that's why we hear about, when the divorce rates are going up, and it's mostly women that are filing for divorce. And a lot of these men, they end up having a lot of health issues. Some men even commit suicide. I mean, it's really, really hard for them when those marriages are over. And I really think that that's probably why a lot of women end up staying, because they know that somewhere in that subconscious, they know that it's going to be much more devastating for him than it is for her. Yes, there's a lot of work that she has to do, but the thing with women is that women are much more communal. We're more social. So we have our support systems, our sisters, our moms, our aunts, our best friends, our, even therapists or whatever. I mean, we have all of these different support systems. And for the most part, the men don't. The men look at you for everything. And so I think that a lot of times women stay because they know how devastating it's going to be for him. And so they stay. And, and while you're doing that, that's pulling from you. That's not doing anything but making things hard for you. How are you going to have the energy to actually create the life that you want when you've allowed yourself and allowed your energy to constantly be siphoned and pulled on, right? So, and Shindira, she said, I thought I was an overstimulated mom with the kids, and it was him and frustration with myself. Yeah. I mean, you know, the way this construct is set up, when women were taken out, and I always say when women were taken out of their sovereign capacity, when they were taken out of the communal structure and we were given this nuclear family structure, that's what made it so much harder on us. It's so important that women have community and support system and a network of other women that are there. I mean, that's the community, the village, that's who raised the children. So you didn't have to worry about being an overstimulated mom. That wasn't even a thing. But when we get into this nuclear family, that's what makes things so much harder for women. It's not natural. It's normal, but it's not natural. And I know for me, I am all about communing with other women. I love connecting with women, powerful women. Um, I love that. And it's and women talk about the matriarchy and all this kind of stuff, but it's like I don't think most women are really truly ready for a matriarchy because, y'all too many women, you're still focused on men and want to get married and all this stuff. And hey, like I said, ain't nothing wrong with getting married. It's all cool. But I know for me, my thoughts and my criticisms of marriage in this construct is not something that I can really fully be on board with, right? I think partnership can be great. I think that if you take two people, they are both fully formed and have, you know, can function great on their own, right? They're not coming from a space of codependency. They're coming together as whole people, right? And then they can come together, bring that together, and then create something. I'm all for that. But for the most part, that's not how most of these marriages are set up. They're set up for codependency and for people to basically dump their traumas on each other, childhood traumas that they never dealt with. And instead of dealing with it, they just dump it into the marriage. It's like they take all of this witch's brew of trauma and insecurities, and inadequacies and dump it into the marriage. And then now we're supposed to have some sort of functioning marriage and relationship. How is that? Right. So, when I talk to women who are coming out of these marriages and these long-term relationships, the first thing that we have to get into is identity and authority. Really understanding and accepting that you are the authority of your own life. You cannot outsource that. Women do outsource it, but I mean, look at where it's getting us. Women have done way too much outsourcing, right? Not enough insourcing, right? Too much outsourcing. And, and like I said, the way marriage is going, I mean, it's like, if you gonna do it, I mean, like I said before, if you're coming from two people who are two whole individuals that are coming together and creating something, then that's awesome. Do that. But I mean, if you're not, and you will find yourself stuck in something that you cannot get out of, and it would behoove you as a woman to start doing the work that you need to do right now so you can get yourself out of it. So, um, so there were some other things that I noticed too with the women who were answering this question, and there were a couple of them that were talking about how now what they're doing is, they said something about he wasn't it what they were saying was that now they're looking for a man who can help them with their basic needs or something like that. And I thought that was really interesting because the question was about conditioning that you were under, that you're now trying to decondition yourself from. And but the thing that they were talking about was they're still looking for a man to provide them with their basic needs. And I just thought, wow, like, this is where a lot of women are. And if you weren't able to achieve that the first go round, why do you think you're going to be able to get it? And then why would you want to? Why wouldn't you want to achieve these things on your own? Why are you looking for a man to do that for you? So these are the things that constantly come up for women, and everything circles back to identity. All of that circles back to identity. And so, you know, when you have daughters, gotta go. This was good. I had some homework. Yeah, do some homework. Definitely. Yeah, I'm glad you were able to get some value from it, Shindura. Yeah, I'll be going live more. We're gonna really be going into this. And it's definitely circles back to my offer, like I said before, one-on-one dark feminine transformational coaching, where we dive deep, we get into your limiting beliefs, we uninstall them, we reinstall new beliefs, and get into the core of, I don't necessarily get into your backstory. I don't really need the backstory. We just want to get into what we want to do now. What can we do to put you on the trajectory to create the life that you want now? And in order to do that, you will have to pull some things up. I talk about your cunning. Um, your cunning is what's going to help you. That's a part of your shadow. Here we go with the shadow integration again. I have a young lady too that she was talking to me about a certain behavior that she had that she thought was, you know, not good and something that she shouldn't do. But the way she explained it to me, I was like, no, that's your cunning. And we're gonna unpack that, because that's what's gonna put you on the trajectory to get to where you want to get to. So this is what we do. This is what we do in the container. So um let me see. We're just looking for more comments. Okay. Okay. So thanks. She said you'll be tapping in again. Yes, please do. Come through, y'all. This is fun. I like doing these lives. So I think it was something, because like I said before, y'all, I got all my notes. Um, but I think let me see. Let me see. Hold on, y'all. Give me a minute. Okay. So, as I said before, you if you are still in these marriages or relationships and you know that you want to get out of it, I would definitely say please start the work now of getting out, because things are definitely going to get really weird and really kind of wonky when it comes to these marriages, and it's going to be so much harder for you to get out of it. And if you are out of it and you are trying to figure out what your next move should be, how do I, you know, what do I do? I can get up and go to work every day. I can get up and take care of my children, but what do I do? How do I execute this next part of my life? And even if I was a stay-at-home mom, that's the next thing. Those are much harder because what you're gonna have to do is now we gotta deal with the financial part of it. And if you've been a stay-at-home mom, it's gonna be that much harder, but it's not impossible because that was me. I was a stay-at-home mom. So it's not impossible, but it's definitely much harder if you're not working and you don't have an income of your own. So usually, most of the women that I work with, the clients, they are financially, at least financially stable enough to where they're able to sustain themselves and their children, but they still need that work, right? Um, and for women who are, like I said, being stay-at-home moms and haven't had an income for themselves, it's gonna be much harder. I always say that if you've been a stay-at-home mom, take all of those skills that you did acquire because you did acquire skills. Take all of those skills that you did acquire and plug it into Chat GPT and tell Chat GPT, "Okay, this is all the stuff that I do at home. What help me out with a skill set? What can I turn this into so I can monetize it and start making some money so I can get up out of here?" That's usually what I tell women who are still in it, but they want out. So, yeah, I think that's it. Um, I think that was it. So the main thing I wanted so y the main thing that I wanted to touch on is like I said, the case study and how, but most of the women had basically the same type of, issues and concerns, once they left. And also, these are the things that we cover, in the one-on-one sessions, the coaching containers, the 4-week container, and right now, the price is still low but I will be increasing the price soon. So if you want to get in, this is a perfect time. I can just send you the link. You can DM me and I can just send you the link. I tried to put the link in here the last time and I don't know what the deal was with that. I don't think anybody could see it, but it's in my bio. But like I said, you can DM me right after this and I can send you the link if anyone's interested in coming in. It's a 4-week containers one-on-one with me. I'm only taking about maybe 3 to 5 women because that's I don't want to overwhelm myself. Right. So yeah, so we're doing that. And like I said before, we get into unlimiting beliefs, we get into uninstalling them and reinstalling new beliefs. We're going to get into what your cunning is because we're going to find that, we're going to unpack it. And we get into the authority, establishing that authority within yourself and also dealing with the self-awareness, all of the things that you need to get you to where you want to get to, the life that you want to create for yourself. And being able to do it by, seeing the world through your lens and not anybody else's. So, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you ladies enjoyed this. I hope you were able to get some value from it. And I think that's it. So, you ladies have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And I'll be coming back here. I think I need to do lives more though. I don't know. But anyway. So yeah, like I said, so if you're interested in the offer, please just DM me and we'll get started. I'll send you the link. And also I am holding 45-minute free coaching sessions. One free coaching session, 45 minutes is free. And in there we'll just kind of get a little bit into, what to expect with the container, the 4-week container, and also if there's just some things that you want to address right now, you kind of need a little bit of counsel on, we can do that in the 45-minute coaching session. So all right, ladies, I will see all of you next week. Well, this week, next week. I'll be here, so you guys have a wonderful day. All right, bye.